here is all the required maintenance on an electric motorcycle.
That's literally all you do for maintenance. I mean, occasionally you can tighten the chain if it's getting sloppy.
Maybe we should look underneath, see if there's a drain plug for something.
I mean, it has a little gearbox, but
where's the radiator cap? I don't see one. It's missing.
Where's the fuel cap?
Looks like a cylinder. There's got to be something in there. That's
Nope.
Pretty cool, dude.
Just some magnets and some batteries.
So that maintenance took about, what, 30 seconds maybe?
That's gonna make a short video.
It's awesome. I asked Brian to bring him over today to see if we could do some maintenance on them, and he reminded me that they don't have any liquids or really anything. He's like, we can lube the chains. So today's video, we just wanted to go over some of our other passions, things we're interested in, but also these bikes, how we can use them as a tool to help us better our job as recovery guys, and maybe show a little of our diversity on things that we can work on and things we're, interested in. So Brian, tell us what this is and how it can help us. Maybe go over some of the points on it, and then tell us, how these bikes can help us in the recon part of what we do.
Well, this is a Sur-Ron. They're pretty big nowadays. They're getting bigger. Full electric motorcycle. They're pretty dang cool. I mean, they take quite a bit if you're a hardcore off-roader to make them very capable, but that being said, when you do get them set up, they're incredible bikes. I've absolutely loved them. I used to be into the gas bikes, so I've sold all my gas bikes. I've built the Sur-Ron, I've built the Talaria, and that's solely what I ride now.
So would you compare this more to a motorcycle or like a pedal bike?
Definitely motorcycle.
Motorcycle?
Stock, they're about 5,300 watts, which is enough to scoot around town and to carefully drive up a trail. But man, they're fun when you boost them up higher than that. So I'll go over some of those things that I've done to make this thing more off-road capable. Kind of our plans with these, aside from the fun factor and trail riding and all the stuff we use them for, is kind of a recon side, scouting out, when somebody's crashed off down into a ditch or something up on one of our recoveries. I think that these things will benefit in getting into tight places and figuring out what we've got to do to get in there and get them hooked up and pulled out, fixed, whatever the case. So I think they'll be really useful in that aspect.
Yeah, I think so too. Like, it'll help us know how to approach maybe from different angles, or how to be best prepared when we come in with the big wrecker, maybe on a tight trail or whatever.
Yep.
That'll be awesome having this as a tool.
Definitely. So we'll start off on some of the upgrades I've done on the Sur-Ron. The first thing that I did to it when I purchased it was this. I put a larger sprocket on it on the rear, and that made a phenomenal difference. It takes a little bit off the top end, your top speed, but when you're on a single track, you're not typically doing 50 miles an hour. So I didn't mind the extra torque to be able to lump up over rocks and things. So that was the first mod I did. Second mod I did was I got rid of the stock tires. They're not much good, in my opinion. They're tiny. I went with this Shinko SR241. It's a 3.5 inch wide by 19 tire. It's a trials bike tire, but it's incredible. It hooks up everywhere. maybe not so great in the deep gravel, but it's great on those good single tracks. Definitely awesome in the rocks. The next thing I did was I went with a 21-inch front wheel and the same SR 241 Trials bike tire in the front, but I went with the, I believe it's a 2.75 wide tire. So it's still a pretty wide tire, clears the suspension really well. Now, after those mods were done, obviously power started to become an issue, so we went with the Lightspeed battery. It's a 60 volt, 42 amp hour, has the moly cells in it. It's an incredible battery. My only complaint so far has been the rubber here. All the times I've taken in and out, it's starting to chafe up pretty good.
Starting to show some wear.
Yep. So the moly cell battery from Lightspeed, that's been a great battery. They did have to build it for me, which took them upwards of a little over a month before I was able to get my hands back on it, which wasn't too bad. Now the controller, you can't actually see the controller. It's hidden inside of this Sabaton controller shell, but it's actually the Nuclear 24F. That's been a fantastic controller. Came with this awesome display up here. I'll hook up the battery and kind of go over some of that for you guys, show you how that all works. This bike is running the D&M fork. I don't love it. Eventually it's going to get swapped out for the probably another Fox 40 like I have on the Talaria. The rear D&M shock is great. Another mod I've done is I've gotten rid of the belt drive and put in this nifty chain drive from Grit Shift. I've loved that.
Spin.
Yeah, give her a spin there, you can see that.
Pretty awesome. So that has like a jack shaft.
Yep. See, they originally came with a primary belt drive. I knew the kind of riding I do that I would explode that thing in a hurry, so I got rid of it. The chain seems to be pretty good. It is a little bit noisier, but you don't get the squeaks that I was getting with the belt. Also, I've upgraded these peg stays with a brace. That's also a must if you're a hard rider.
Give it to me like. I love you.
25,000 watts. How would you rate that in like horsepower for people like me that don't know what that means?
So,
Would be the equivalent, I guess.
so a kilowatt is about, let's see, I think 1 horsepower is 3/4 of a kilowatt, roughly. And so 25 kilowatts is closer to like 30 horsepower.
Oh, okay.
But the torque is what's phenomenal.
Tell
So
me
this
about-
little bike is running 2 tunes. I was able to retain the stock sport and the, I call it the elderly person mode, but the EP mode. My EP mode, I run right around 6 to 8,000 watts, 6,000 to 8,000 watts. On sport mode, I'll put it right around 10 to 12, just depending on where I'm riding and what kind of riding I'm doing. Typically on a single track, 8 to 10,000 is like the great fun spot. It's not too much, but it's enough to get you up over anything you wanna climb.
Brian's gonna show us how these batteries go in and get hooked up.
Give it to me like. I love you.
Like that.
Give it to me like.
Normally you wouldn't have to do that, but I like my batteries really tight.
There you go.
So, I'll show you this cool display that came with the nuclear controller. Turn it on here. It's got your battery voltage, your amperage. Obviously it's 0 because we're not hauling butt.
It's awesome. So here's the second edition. Brian's gonna give you guys a rundown on this one.
So here's the Talaria. This is, to be honest, my favorite of the two.
So tell us some differences and why that is.
Okay, yeah, definitely. The Talaria, obviously different manufacturer. They do look really similar. This bike, the reason why I prefer it over the Sur-Ron is it's just built a little bit beefier, and in the places that I think were necessary. The swing arm is a little bit thicker. It's wider, so you can fit a fatter tire before it'll rub the chain. You can see, even though it's wider, it still comes quite close in contact with this 3.5-inch Shinko Trials tire.
Looks like you did the big sprocket on this too, huh?
Yep, this one got the big sprocket as well. It's got a 64 tooth on it. The other one has a 62. Also, one of my favorite upgrades they did was they got rid of it. They don't have a belt drive that, in my opinion, was necessary to upgrade. It has a gearbox.
Oh, an actual.
It has a gearbox.
Probably
yep.
keeps a lot quieter than the chain drive, huh?
It is. It's quite a bit quieter than the Sur-Ron is.
So instead of having a jack shaft here, it's an actual gearbox. That's awesome.
That's where it gets its primary gear reduction, and then your chain secondary. It came with a bigger battery, but I've gotten rid of that also because I wanted a lot more power than it was capable of. This is an EBMX 53 amp hour 60 volt. It was for a Sur-Ron. I've changed over the connectors to the Talaria, or I'm sorry, to this. I've changed the Talaria connectors over to the Sur-Ron connectors so I could run the bigger battery, because when I bought the kit for the controller, they had not had a battery for the Talaria yet. The controller I've run on this one is a Greenline Engineering BAC 8000. It's an incredible controller.
Looks like you got a pretty fancy fork on there for off a downhill mountain bike, huh?
Yep, Fox 40 fork. That was one of the best upgrades I've done on this bike. It handles very well on single track. Also, I've done the Milk Racing 21-inch front wheel with that Shinko tire once again. I love these tires. I'd highly recommend them to anybody, especially, you know, if you like single track or you like the rocks. I rigged up this Trials bike fender here, kind of keep the dirt off. Also, I think it looks totally sweet.
Sure does. Gives it that Trials appearance, which is pretty dang cool, especially for where we live. Very versatile type terrain.
Same with the rear fender, Trails bike rear fender I rigged up in there. That was pretty easy, just only had to drill a couple holes in it and it fit in there nice.
Nice Fox rear shock too, huh?
Yep, Fox rear shock as well. Upgraded foot pegs. Grit shift, I did their lever here on the bottom for the rear suspension, as well as the grit shift bar risers up here. Love that. I like my bars nice and high. I like to keep my hands protected, so we put these.
Those were nice. We were out riding the other day. I felt bad. Brian gave me this one and we were whacking our hands on all kinds of bushes. I didn't get any scratches.
Yeah. If you like to go through the trees, it's definitely a must. I do, however, love this regen thumb throttle. My other bike is on the brake. I like that as well. I can't really honestly say which one I like more because they're both fantastic. But it is nice when you're coming down a hill, you don't have to use your brakes nearly as much with that setup.
So explain what the motor does when you do that, and also like how it charges, because I thought that was a cool feature too.
So the regen is basically, it turns your motor into an alternator. So when you're coming down a hill or something, you can flip this little lever here and it'll kind of reverse the flow of your electrons and it'll start to recharge your battery. Now, we come down some pretty steep stuff and we've gotten 10-15% charge back on our batteries for just going down, you know, a few miles of downhill sections. It's kind of great. But
yeah, it's cool because you're out riding your dirt bike and all of a sudden you have more gas in the tank just because you went downhill.
yes, people worry a lot about, you know, range and stuff. I do recommend the bigger battery, the better, obviously. This 53 amp hour battery has been phenomenal. I would highly recommend it. It goes for a long time. I think we rode for a good solid 4 hours of pretty hard technical riding, and by the time we got back to the truck, this bike still had a good 25-30% charge on it. So good upgrade.
Brian's got a little story for you guys about how gnarly these bikes can get when he was first experimenting with some of the tuning on them and seeing like truly how capable they were and how much power they can make. You go ahead and tell us about the time you were up Millville Canyon, Brian.
Well, right after I did controller upgrade, you have to keep in mind that while it doesn't seem like a ton of horsepower, it is a ridiculous amount of torque. And 15 kilowatts is enough to just flip you right onto your back. So it's fun, but you have to be careful when you upgrade these things. Just a forewarning on that. I took it up.
Granted, I mean, to give him the background, you come from riding all kinds of big horsepower.
Yeah.
Like everything from snowmobiles to two-stroke dirt bikes and everything. These are kind of a short wheelbase bike, and so.
But
Brian
they're also
explained,
ultra light.
Right.
I mean, this bike probably weighs 150 pounds at the most. The Sur-Ron is even less. It's probably 130, 140.
We just want to clarify that Brian was not a newbie out testing way too much power like a rocket ship.
Yes.
He knew what he was doing. He knew kind of what he was getting into, but let's hear the story about how exciting it got.
Well, I took it up a canyon that I've taken 450s. My favorite bike prior to these was a KTM 300, all really powerful bikes. Took it up, it's a pretty rocky canyon, did really well, I mean, these things will just crawl, which is incredible. And you cannot stall them, which is also incredible. So I took it up a pretty gnarly section of rocks, and it did amazing. On the way back down, I was feeling some confidence, you know, new system, but having a good time. And I came up over a cattle guard. Thought I would catch a little bit of air. Well, I didn't just catch a little bit of air, I also flipped the bike all the way over and landed on a rock with my arm. We'll have to insert a picture of the gruesomeness, but it did leave a pretty good scar.
Kind of hard to see, but that's a skin graft.
Yeah, I had to have my whole elbow skin graft back together. They had to stretch it back up and sew it shut. I was able to ride out of there, luckily.
We, viewer discretion advised, we're gonna throw a picture in right now.
So yeah.
So you're able to, what then, after the accident, you're kind of in shock, right?
I was a little in shock. I rode out of there. I lost quite a lot of blood. So if you're upgrading these things, just be cautious. They
For their
do
size,
make
yeah.
a ton of power for the lightweight, and yeah, but they're fun and they're very agile. If you like that type of riding, single tracks, rocks and things, if you have any questions, let me know. I'd be happy to answer them. If you guys want some tutorials and things, I'd be happy to show you that as well, because I love building these things. It's a big passion for me. The electric systems are actually quite easy when you get down to the nitty gritty.
Let's get down to the nitty gritty.
Quiet power. Silent but deadly.
Awesome, dude.